Morning, and thank you very much for having me to speak this morning. It's, it's nice to be talking about small businesses. Much of my discourse over the last 10 days has been dominated by two fairly well-known businesses, and it has to be said, I'm Pfizered out right now, and I haven't even taken any of their drugs. But look, it's a pleasure to be here and to be at Bloomberg again. Such an impressive building, this building, and not just because of all the fish tanks you see dotted around when you walk around it, but of course, it's testament to Michael Bloomberg, who was gripped by an idea, a dream of a company that he thought could not only make money, but actually provide a new global service. And so this is really an inspiring setting, I think, for the important discussion that I know is going on, not just this morning, but this afternoon too. The future of growth, I think, speaks to a central question we face, which is, what type of economy are we going to build? Is it going to be an economy built on bubbles, imbalances, and the rest that we've seen in times past? Or is it built on a more expansive, more productive idea of wealth creation, built on the strength of all the talents and ideas that can benefit the whole of society and be sustainable in this modern and fast-changing world? I think we all know here which is the right path if we're going to be successful as a society in the long term. It's one of the great privileges of my job to meet so many entrepreneurs who I see delivering shared value, not just for the bottom line and their own businesses, but actually for society too. People who show that striving, that burning desire to make tomorrow better than today, in spite of all the economic difficulties, is really the mark of those who dare to do, as I put it. And as the son of a man who arrived here from Nigeria in the mid-1960s with a battered suitcase and no money, but with a desire to succeed and contribute, my whole family has been influenced, and our destinies have been shaped by that spirit of entrepreneurship. And that spirit spreads prosperity, it drives innovation, and it creates opportunity. And it's that spirit, that gaze to the future, that we need at the heart of the British economy. It is a narrative of a British dream that I truly believe is as powerful a motivator as its American twin, that makes sure that we're always in what one of my heroes, Bill Clinton, has said, the future business, shaping our collective and individual futures together, that sees all of our diverse experiences, talents and skill as a source of potential and great promise. And I love the quote, actually, of the American inventor. He developed the electronic starter to the car, Charles Kettering, who said, "We should all be concerned about the future because we'll have to spend the rest of our lives there." I firmly believe that it's the role and responsibility of policymakers, of politics, to give people the ability to be lifted by that spirit. That's why I do what I do. At the start of last year, that belief inspired the thought that we should bring the idea of Small Business Saturday, which Michael mentioned, from the US to the UK. And I know the US is never far from conversations on entrepreneurship, but we managed to achieve this. And in less than 10 months, we built a movement here to make Small Business Saturday UK happen on the 7th of December last year. And the result, 50 business organisations backed it. More than 40% of the country's local authorities got involved, all political persuasions, I should say. Half of UK consumers knew about it, and the day generated an additional £500 million worth of trade for our small businesses. I think that's no mean achievement. This year's Small Business Saturday is going to take place on Saturday the 6th of December. So if you've disobeyed a ruling earlier to switch your smartphone off, switch it on and put the 6th of December into your diaries. It shows the spirit of entrepreneurialism is alive in our country. There's another US lesson too, which Michael mentioned too, the role of the US government in the American dream as a commissioning buyer of new technologies, as a proactive customer of small firms, and a facilitator of access to finance. To promote the British dream, we need to ensure there is a platform to let people's talents flourish here. That's why Labour is now committed to the creation of a UK Small Business Administration, inspired by the US example and the establishment of a proper British investment bank to support our startups, our entrepreneurs, our small businesses. These actions are all part of our Agenda 2030, our plan for a more balanced economy that delivers sustainable and inclusive growth. And let me just say something about the name. We've deliberately called it Agenda 2030 because we recognise that you work to more than 4 to 5 year electoral timeframes. You're looking in the real world, Westminster world's a bit crazy sometimes, but you're looking to what you're going to do through the rest of this decade and probably the next as well. And so we thought our plan for better balanced sustainable growth should reflect that. And so that's why we've called it Agenda 2030. And it has 4 parts to it: liberating the talents of all, securing our future through innovation, so developing solutions to tomorrow's problems today, an active government working in partnership with you in business, and an outward-looking and open approach to the world. And I agree with all the panel on immigration, by the way. Now, rather than describe all of those different parts to you today, before I shut up and we have a conversation, there's one that I think straddles all 4 of those pillars, and that is the role of digital and mobile to our future. All of you, I mean, we're in Bloomberg after all, will have digital strategies, mobile strategies. And in 25 years since Tim Berners-Lee put together that bold proposal, our world, of course, has changed beyond recognition, and digital technology has the potential to make the world of difference, good or bad. Eric Schmidt, the executive chairman of Google, makes an interesting point here when he says that the internet is among the few things humans have built that they don't really understand. This digital world grows larger and more complex with every passing second. And what we do understand is that for the first time in history, this period of technological change, this new digital era is truly global. It's central to our future and can be a source of challenge to our economy or a catalyst for inspiration. Now, if we want to own the future, we have to make it our inspiration and make sure the platform we build for our people is digital. Now, as GoOn's UK research has found, and this is alarming, I think, over 1 in 5 adults in our country lack basic online skills. 1 in 5 to make use of the full range of digital tools. More than 7 million people have still never once been online. We've got to change that. And we've also got to help our businesses in that respect. The annual turnover of small businesses could rise by over £18 billion if less digitally skilled firms went digital. 2/3 at the moment do not sell goods or services online, and they could. So we've got work to do. And government has got to be at the forefront of this, of creating that environment for digital success, because it has such an important enabling role to play. Now, think of the UK's leadership in online retail, in part due to the last Labour government acting very quickly to set up the right regulatory framework to give customers confidence in the new marketplace. But we can't press pause. So we've launched a number of reviews. The former Tomorrow's World presenter, Maggie Philbin, is heading a review into digital skills for us. John Woodward, the former director of the UK Film Council, is leading a wider review on the role of digital in the creative industries. Chi Omura, our Shadow Cabinet Office Minister, a former computer engineer, has launched Labour's Digital Britain 2015, which is going to look at how we use government more intelligently and digital in that respect to deliver services. And we've also pulled together shadow ministers from all different teams to look at how we harness digital opportunities to overcome the challenges we have ahead of us. So trying to ensure that we do join up, because we figure if you don't do it at the moment when we're not siloed physically in different government departments, there's going to be no hope for us if we reach office. Let me just finish by saying this. I think digital can often be an afterthought, like a bolt-on, but I think it's got to be absolutely integral to what we do. And we can make it happen, I believe. We can experience the future, or we can shape it. And I think all of you in this room today have that drive, provide us with the inspiration, and also the partners to help make that happen. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Is that right? Thanks very much. Come and have a seat. Great. Chuka, thank you for that. Absolutely brilliant.
Pleasure.
I'm going to come back to the importance of 2030 as maybe a bit later, towards the end. But do you think, I mean, just obviously, it's a very well-behaved group of entrepreneurs here this morning, but I mean, do you think... well, we'll see in a minute, but do you think politicians ever really get entrepreneurs? I mean, obviously, it's a highly individualistic tribe of people that don't like necessarily the rules. Do you think that Westminster and entrepreneurship are kind of two planets that collide a bit?
I think it's fair to say, I think it depends on the politician. I mean, people actually there's a much broader range of experience in the House of Commons than a lot of people realise. And I mean, I just look in my own shadow business team. Toby Perkins, the shadow business minister, used to run his own rugby supply products company. Mm-hmm. Ian Murray used to run his own events management company. Liam Byrne, who many people will know, used to run a tech company himself. So certainly in the business team, I think there's a strong understanding. But I think where there is a misunderstanding, and it goes to the point that I made in my remarks about shared value, is I think often in the popular imagination, and it's often when I meet some of my young constituents who, they want to be rich.
Right.
And so they want to be an entrepreneur. And I think that tends to misunderstand what the primary driver is for entrepreneurs, certainly that I meet, which is usually they've come up with an idea that could be quite useful, and then could monetize it. But the monetizing comes after they've thought of that useful thing.
Yeah.
And so I do think the people I meet, they do want to make money, but they're also interested in doing something useful for society too. And I think that's sometimes where there's a misunderstanding.
And how do you get that broad? I mean, you mentioned in the report in Growth Britannia, you said that the British dream must be authentic to the national psyche in terms of, so is that a kind of get wealthy psyche? I mean, that's presumably one of the more negative parts of it. But I mean, do you want to elaborate a bit on how you see the British psyche at the moment and how entrepreneurs can relate to it?
Well, do you know what? I actually think that we are more entrepreneurial than they are in the States. And I actually also think the British dream can be more of a reality than it is in the States.
Right.
We're quite unequal in this country, but we're not as unequal as they are in the States. I think our problem, when I talk about this idea of the British dream, which to my mind is every bit as strong and prevalent as it is in the US, is that we just don't really talk about it. We just don't talk about it. And we also have this terrible attitude which says that if you've tried to set up a business, you come up with an idea and you failed, that somehow that's a bad thing. We put a black mark against your name. Whereas in the States, there is an attitude that usually you're going to have tried and failed once, maybe twice, before you hit upon that really successful idea. And that is partly because I think sometimes, let's be honest about it without generalising, and I'm now going to generalise, we can be quite cynical. If you don't make a success of your business, there's always going to be a worry, particularly if it's high profile, you're going to end up splashed across the Daily Mail for doing something irresponsible.
But give us a sense of the British dream. And is it just as simple as you can make it here, or is there something more sort of? I mean, is it about overcoming failure or also? I mean, what if you were going to try and just sort of give us in a nutshell, what is the British dream, or what should it be? What should entrepreneurs take from that? Do you think?
I think it is a sense that if you play by the rules, you work hard, and you use your ingenuity, you can make it. But I think it is greater than that. I think one of the things that offends me so much about the immigration debate that we have in this country at the moment is that it runs counter to our values of fair play, openness, tolerance, and a sense of social solidarity. And I actually think, going back to what I was saying about entrepreneurs and people who start businesses, they are not just doing it to make money, they are doing it because they want to do something bigger for their country and their community. And I think in essence that is part of what it is actually to be an entrepreneur. That is part of what it is to have a British dream. And all this stuff that you see from certain people surname starting with an F runs completely counter to what that is about from my point of
Okay,
view.
so moving on to this high growth culture,
Yeah.
in terms of actually how you stimulate it. I mean, you talked about the need for gazelle businesses in the report. I mean, in terms of, obviously, you know, there's a potentially schizophrenic relationship with that, isn't there, in terms of these needs of these high growth, high value businesses who you want to sort of take presumably more to the treasury in terms of taxation, but then also stimulating them at the beginning where they're potentially very weak. I mean, how do you create that kind of culture to go for it, and how does things like tax play into that?
Well, I actually think because some of the gazelles who are embarking on very new, innovative journeys, for them it's difficult to raise finance because they are a risky proposition to some of the traditional institutions. That's where I think government can step in and fill the gap in the market. We're the only G8. In fact, we're not allowed to talk about the G8 these days, are we?
G7.
We're the only G7.
We're
the only G7 economy without state-backed investment institutions to plug the gap. You know, in the US they've got the SBA and its different loan programs. In Germany they've got KfW and the Sparkasse, and we don't have something similar.
But what about the new business bank
The problem with the new business bank is if you go, as I have done, if you go on its website, you will see that it directs you to the existing high street banks who have been the problem. And that's why with the British Investment Bank, like you've got KfW in Germany,
they do Funding Circle, and
you need a network of regional banks. It's good what they've done around Funding Circle, but we need to scale that up. I think, look, one of the challenge for policymakers is that, you know, particularly guys in the innovation space, what they are doing is very disruptive. And there's this debate, I'm sure people may have heard of this book that everybody's reading, which I have yet to read, called The Second Machine Age, which poses the challenge to us, which is that often this disruption and automation, far from leading to the growth of more high school jobs, which is our destination that we want, can actually destroy them. Now, we've got to, you know, that's something we have to work through. But frankly, I mean, you know, I was joking, well, I was just kind of making a bit of a humorous aside a bit earlier about AstraZeneca and Pfizer, but one of the reasons I've got so lively about that issue is that it is through innovation that we're going to be able to compete in the world, and that's why our science base and R&D is so fundamentally important. That's how we're going to be able to deliver a better
I like that idea about the future business. I mean, actually, there's the whole Clinton thing. I mean, you've spent quite a bit of time in the States, haven't you? And is it a more proactive sense of the state getting involved over there, or is it minimalist government?
Well, Ha-Joon Chang, the Cambridge economist, made the interesting observation about the US and its industrial policy, that it has the best industrial policy because nobody knows it actually exists.
Right.
And, you know, if anyone here with a smartphone, the technology in that phone, I think Intel, Apple, all these guys benefited from from finance from the Small Business Investment Company regime. So they've been quietly doing the whole work in partnership with business and help fund innovation through use of procurement for a long time. But you know, look, a lot of people talk about the US. One of the most, and you would expect me to say this, one of the most entrepreneurial places in the world that I often kind of feel inspired by is Nigeria, by the way.
Massive growth economy.
Now, some people may make some slightly derogatory comments on the governance side about Nigeria, but if you look at what businesses achieve in spite of all the governance challenges and what... so I think the US provides an important inspiration, but there are others that can inspire us
so we're bang out of time, unfortunately, but one of the things
I come at the Labour Party conference, this red thing is flashing at me, telling us the time
I'm sure that's the leader, but that's... So what I would just finish up with is this idea of the Small Business Administration. You've called for it, the FSB called for it. Is it what Britain needs, or is this a kind of export? I mean, just give us a very brief answer.
The problem for everyone in this room is you don't really have a seat at the table in government. I mean, I will do that as the business secretary if we're elected. We make no presumptions about where I will be, you know, what we'll be doing in a year's time. But there needs to be far more focus. And what the SBA does in the US is ensure that the federal government in every single department takes small businesses seriously and makes sure they get a look in on federal government contracts. The worst offenders in the UK on that front are the Treasury. 1.5% of their contracts go to small businesses, and the business department, 2.5% of that. Now, you need a focus brought to bear on that. And secondly, in fact, in fairness to this government, and I'm not just going to come in and do the party political thing, actually there's some really good schemes that government has. There's a lot of good support out there, but many people don't know about it. I mean, we've got UKTI. I think I saw John Allen from the FSB sitting in the back there. Half of the Federation of Small Businesses members don't even know UKTI exists.
Right.
So you've got to...
There's some UKTI people here. I'm sure they can they can swap business cards.
Well, I want to help you guys, the UKTI people in the audience, but there are a lot of things that government does, and also I think we've got to ensure that there's adequate business support. The amount of times I have constituents come to my surgery and say, look, Chuka, I've got this idea, I want to start a business, I've got nowhere to go and get support and advice, and I think the Small Business Administration can make sure, like the SBA does in the US, that's
Chuka, regrettably,
everywhere.
I'm being waved at frantically, which means, unfortunately, we have to stop. We could go on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, please do thank the Shadow Secretary, Chuka Umunna. Thank you so much indeed. Cheers, very much enjoyed it. Cheers.